Good afternoon. My name is Roger Garcia. I also serve on the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, representing District 1 in South Omaha, but also currently the chair of the board. I wanted to start with saying that I'm all in favor of pursuing smart, strategic policies, whether it be a policy revision or new policies in general. And there very well may be things we need to address at the state level. So much of what we do, we're talking about property valuations, and a lot of that is mandated by state law and how state law tells us to do those valuations. We may have a county assessor, but the county assessor is following state law. So what does state law tell us? It tells us that the way that we assess homes is that we have to chase the market. So if the market goes high, we have to chase the market. If it goes high again, we have to chase it again. Why? Not because that's what we want to do. It's what the state law tells us to do. It's based on it's based on the market value. Could that be looked at? Definitely. State law also tells us that we need to stay within 92% to 100% of that market value. That's what we do. I know our assessor's office historically tries to land somewhere around 95%. Could that be looked at? Maybe drop that down to 88% or 86%, I don't know. Something to look at, right? But we're following the state law and what it tells us to do with that range. We talked about homestead exemptions today. Could that be looked at? Dropping the age from 65 to 62 and a half or 63, something to provide more relief to our seniors and those nearing that age. The income level was mentioned. I think somebody said 61,000. I don't know if that is the top value, but if it is, wow, that's not very high in today's age. With inflation, cost of living, that could definitely be looked at as well to make sure more people actually qualify. I talk to citizens at our county board meetings, and those who have to protest to Turk at the state level, they do tell me that their case is backlogged by 1 to 2 years. That is very unfortunate. I don't want to hear that. I hope that maybe we can appropriate more funds to beef up the staffing at Turk and expedite those cases. So instead of 1 to 2 years, maybe it's a 3-month process and get it through. Expedite. We know that, as mentioned, valuations are an issue, and how we fund local schools is an issue. How do we find that balance to keep our local schools strong while also not having such a heavy burden on local taxpayers? Something definitely to look at. We mentioned the $1 billion fund that was established last year. Is that working? Is that not working? Does it need more time to work? Honestly, I don't have the answer. I'm not sure. But what more do we need to do, if more, on that level as far as local taxpayers helping support our local schools? How do we keep them strong while also providing some relief? As my colleague mentioned, the county is 13% of your tax bill. So I read the governor's plan, and it's easy to arouse emotions and point fingers and say, these local people are the ones causing all the issues. But if you look at, I think taxpayers, including myself, get the best bang for their buck from local government entities. If you need law enforcement to come out in the city of Omaha, if you need law enforcement to come out in Western Douglas County, who's that sending you that service? It's local taxpayers. There's many things that we do at the local level that are state mandated. It's the county that makes us be involved in corrections, law enforcement, mental health, and the list goes on. So I'll wrap up because I'm getting the cue here. We don't have a 3-legged stool. We don't get sales taxes. We don't get income taxes. It's actually the system that has made us so reliant on property taxes. 20 years ago, we used to get state aid to help with things like corrections. We no longer get state aid for those items. The system structurally has made us overly reliant on property taxes. We welcome support to help still serve our taxpayers while not making our services to the taxpayer become deficient and, quite frankly, bad. So, thank you.
If Bennington is going to have such growth, I think the question is not how much property taxes are people paying, but how are you going to fund growth? This goes into Senator Raybould's comment of we need a comprehensive financial plan that takes the inputs and the expenses and says, how are we going to pay for Nebraska? I am so thankful for all of you being here today, since it's obvious, and this is the reason I stood in line, our government cares not for the eastern part of our state. So why would we give him control of our schools? Why? He doesn't even come visit us. He doesn't come talk about a major change statewide that will affect every one of us, and he does not come here. That is mind-boggling to me, and it should be unacceptable to all of us.
Here, here.
I mean, I voted for him, but he's my governor, but obviously I'm not his constituent. The other thing I will say, I live in West Side, and I pulled this up. Our Board of Education has reduced our overall tax levy for 5 years in a row. Our 2023-24 overall tax levy is 13.8 cents lower than it was in 22-23, resulting in 1.3 million less from local property taxes. Our school systems are doing their damn best trying to educate our kids, and I am willing to spend any cent and my support for them completely. So my last thought is, why don't we, the eastern part of the state, just secede from them?
But sometimes you're propelled. I'm OPS proud, very proud. First of all, I grew up in OPS. I went to Howard Kennedy Elementary, and I was one of those kids whose father worked 2 full-time jobs, and I went home for lunch. And I was kind of jealous of the kids that had lunch at school. But it's what had to happen, 2 full-time jobs. And I grew up, I became a teacher in OPS, and then principal in OPS, and the lead teacher in OPS. So I saw a lot over my 40 years, and I am retired as of 2015. And I want to thank you for being here, because I know it's tough when you have to make decisions on a budget and you want to serve everybody. So I'm just going to narrow down the one part that hit me, and that is funding private schools with public money, because that is a choice. And the reason I say that is because we educate them all. There wasn't anyone in my years at OPS that we turned away. Autism, ELL, families that were homeless, they all, from the shelters and whatnot, they all deserve education. And I say this, I say what my first, and I'm proud of my children who went to OPS. OPS produced a scientist, an entrepreneur, and another teacher. And so I'm just going to end with what my mother would always say: educate them all. You don't know. We can count the seeds in an apple. God knows how many trees in a seed. So educate them all. Don't take that money away. You don't know. You don't know. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Ash. I live in District 5, and just want to say thank you for holding this session and having this opportunity for us to speak. I think an important issue to highlight is, I agree, it sucks when your property valuation goes up double digits every year. If you're living on fixed income especially, that's difficult. I think an important thing to remember is that this issue did not happen overnight. It's been decades in the making, obviously exacerbated by the Great Recession. Number of new houses being built, not what we need to be heading at. In addition, restrictive zoning laws, issues of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. The idea that I don't want my neighborhood to get congested. I only want to live in suburban sprawl. I don't want lower income people in my neighborhood because I don't want those kinds of people lowering my property value. Well, our property values aren't being lowered. And it's one of those things where I understand the taxes can be restrictive, but if we're only looking at the taxes and not the underlying issue, we're slapping a Band-Aid on an issue that's just gonna keep getting worse. And I understand the things we need to do is, at the end of the day, we need to build more housing. But I understand that's not something that's gonna happen overnight either. So in lieu of, the 5-10 years it'll take, look at cities like Minneapolis or even Houston, Texas. They built more housing, rent prices has been going down. We cool the housing market, that makes things better for everybody. And one of the issues here is folks wanna keep getting that higher equity in their house, but they don't wanna pay for it. And the thing is, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So we need to focus on better solutions, which unfortunately aren't super quick. So while we're working on those, I think things like legalizing marijuana and taxing that, online gambling, getting tax revenue from that, something I very support the governor pursuing, is getting more federal funding aid. As somebody who works for the state in the Office of Economic Assistance, the idea that we turn down summer EBT because Nebraska doesn't need it, not to base off the anecdotes, but maybe sit beside me for one day and we need it. So it's one of those things, I don't know, quantifiably how big that is, but, those things I think would help. Thank you.
Hi, Jacob Carmichael. Those of you who know me know I have a lot to say about this, so I will try to be really quick. My grandparents live in California. I understand the benefit of Prop 13 for people on fixed income. However, it's hard when valuations are going up and you have people moving in and out of the neighborhood, and you also have issues with people bequeathing houses and so many different property values and people paying 4 times more in property tax than the person next to them and it going to the same school. Part of the issue is valuation increases. I think a cap on valuations goes along with that, but I am lucky to have a job where I get a cost of living increase every year. People on fixed incomes, people on disability, people retirement, and a lot of people don't get that kind of thing, and it's hard when your property taxes go up on a valuation that's going faster than inflation, but your income doesn't even go up at that rate of inflation. That's more of your budget. I understand that. I think a way to offset it is lowering property taxes, lowering valuations is smart, but we also do need to offset that as well. Legalizing marijuana reduces convictions, it reduces the amount of people in jail that we need to cover those expenses, as well as bringing in millions of dollars that we could use towards public schools. And I think the big takeaway from this is that, yeah, this is a big issue, but also there's not an easy solution, and I think everyone in this room can agree that the majority of the governor's plan is not it. So I don't think trying to solve it next week is an issue, especially with the cost of a special session. Half of you are up for election, run on it. Let's address it next year's session. Let's make it the big thing and set the budget with it instead of trying to do this as a one-off next week. That's not going to solve the issue. Do research done, run on it, go in, know what your voters want, and solve the issue then.
Thank you very much. We did it, folks. We collectively stayed on time. Okay. So again, I just want to let you all know, if you didn't speak and you'd like to share your thoughts, the QR code, there's papers out there, please scan it, and anyone who fills out that form, it will be shared with the full legislature, I promise you. Again, thank you to my colleagues who are here today. Several of my colleagues were not able to attend, but they did send some of their representatives here. Thank you to our amazing staff. The legislature would not function without them. And I also want to say thank you to Juan, who is the person in charge today of this facility, and he was very gracious in accommodating us with constantly adding more chairs. He's probably out in the hallway somewhere, but thank you to Juan and to the university and the Alumni Center. Thank you all very much for your time today, and please, oh, yes, Senator Reipe.
I just want to do a shameless piece. I do have an article in the Public Pulse today which states my position aligns with many of the things you have said. So.
Thank you, Senator Reipe, and thank you all. Please, I know it is crowded in here, so don't rush out and be conscientious of those that have some